You know that feeling when everything is just getting to be a little too much and you start panicking and you're certain you're about to go under. But all you really needed was someone to grab your hand, get your attention, and tell you, hey, put your feet down. You can stand here. Well, that's what this space is for. Welcome to Get a Grip with Dr. Gauri Behari, where we flip the frame and find our footing. A Motivation in That production. We are back, and this time, if you are watching, you're noticing we have an extra face on the screen for Get a Grip with Dr. Gauri Behari today, and that is Amjed Baghdadi, who is one of our former colleagues, both Gauri and I, and we are so excited to have a three-way conversation today about some of these difficult, sticky, icky leadership things that Gauri and I, the more we talk about it on Get a Grip, the more we're like, we probably need to have another person here for this conversation because we want to inject ourselves and challenge ourselves with different insights. So Amjed, thank you so much for being here today. In a couple seconds, just tell us a little bit about who you are. And you come from your own podcasting background. So hit us with that real quick before we get into today's topic.
Yeah, no, sure. First of all, extremely honored to be here. A huge fan of both of you and all the work that you've been doing, both in our prior, when we were working together in the same organization, and then also the work you've been doing since then. It's just been so exciting to see some of the things that you guys are both gifting to the world, I guess is the phrase that I will use. And so I'm just really grateful. I'm really honored to be here. It's that you would even think to invite me is like, it just makes me feel very humbled. So a little bit about me. I'm just a broken guy like the rest of us. And just really grateful for having found some healing over the past maybe 15, 20 years. I've shared this story a couple of times that in February of 2007 was the last time I had a really strong, significant mental health challenge. I'll put it that way. And I finally got the help that I needed, the professional help that I needed. And I've been on this journey ever since. So we're coming, kind of coming up on the 20-year mark for that. And it's like the growth that's come out of that. And I ended up starting a little podcast, which has been on break, but I've been very motivated because a friend of mine, motivation in that, it's like I've kind of been motivated to get restarted again and get back into that work. But it was just an opportunity for me to share some of those experiences and kind of the growth that's come over the last several years.
My Humanity is Showing, which is Amjed's podcast, and ties so beautifully into today's conversation that we're going to have, which is about the fact that leaders are humans and leaders struggle with a lot of things that we've mentioned in the past, imposter syndrome and conflict resolution. But we're going to touch on some real case scenarios that I actually was kind of fired up about just a couple days ago as Gauri and I were brainstorming for this, and I can't wait for both of yours insight. So I'm going to set the stage for us, which is this idea of no matter what layer of leadership you end up in, and Gauri, I'm going to highlight that I'm talking supervisors and managers to staff. So not like the, ambiguous idea of leadership, but the physical, I am in charge of someone else's production and tasks and goals and all of those things. And it is not always kumbaya. It just really, especially the bigger your teams get, the more you have to balance. And we are such unique individuals. And as I was looking back and throwing that mirror up that so often we've challenged folks to do, like hold the mirror up, ask yourself the questions. And I had two staff that I just never did get it. I could not break through that aha moment of now we know how to work together. It was butting heads like no one else's business. I mean, mediation involved at some points, begging another supervisor, can you please take them onto your team? Like, I don't know what to do, keeping me up at night, like up to performance appraisals, like literally not sleeping for 2 to 3 nights because I was dwelling. Gauri, we'll go back to the dwelling episode, rehearsing in my head what the heck I was going to say and trying to predict what the outcomes were going to be or what their responses were going to be. And in the end, I left one of the teams that the individual was on, and the other one, I left the whole organization eventually. And one of the deciding points was I did not want to supervise that type of person anymore. And I realized in categorizing that, it was actually more of a reflection on me in some ways of who am I to judge who is manageable and who is not. So I really am looking forward to a little bit of honest critiquing conversation, hearing from your own experiences of how do we navigate those things when they come up? Because it's so easy to rely on the positive relationships that we have. Goes back to I always tell the same person, I always volunteer the same people for things because I trust them and I lean on them. And then we get other folks that challenge us and they make us think, am I actually good at what I'm doing? Is it me or is it you? Is it both of us? Is it some weird dynamic that we have? So that sets up today's kind of conversation, which is think of those relationships that you have in the workforce with the people that you supervise, or maybe even you with your supervisor. And how do we find ourselves through the broken ones? And do we even? Who wants to jump first? Gauri, Amjed?
I think we should. I think ladies first. So I think I'm trying to keep chivalry alive. It's on an iron lung, but we're trying to keep it going. So.
I was going to say you should go first as our guest, but
Oh.
real life. It's such a. I know I've been there. Amjed, I was watching you. You were nodding through it. I think anybody who's supervised others, I think we all have at least one example in our minds when we've gone through that. And first and foremost, that's really hard. Like it broke me to feel like I couldn't get through to someone and I couldn't get on the same page because I view myself as a unifier and an influential person, and I can get people to go along. So I'll be honest, when I went through it the first time, probably the first few times, I took it really personally as something that, what am I doing wrong? How can I get through to this person? And then it doesn't take long after you do all that reflection to start turning around on them and thinking that what's wrong with them that they won't do it. And it's probably, and just as you said, it's probably a combination of both. There are things that we can do better, and there's things that person can do better. But Amjed, I would love to hear what you think.
Wow. So this brings up so much for me. Like I'm sitting here. That's why I wanted you to go first, because I was like, I don't even know how to encapsulate my thoughts in like a succinct way, because like so much has come up for me in this conversation. Just big picture wise, to paint kind of I guess the journey for me. If you look at kind of my first big supervisory experience back when I was a service chief, I wanted to be it's like we've kind of talked about this. Like I wanted to be the kumbaya guy. Like I wanted to be the one who like everybody saw me as their friend and their, I think the word you used, Gauri, about like a unifier and, always positive. And probably the word I was most terrified of as a new supervisor was the word accountability. I was so terrified of that word because in my mind, a metaphor for accountability was a hammer. And I did not want to pick up and drop the hammer. Like I used to always say that. I was like, I don't want to be the guy who drops the hammer. And after everything fell apart for me, back in 2014, I realized that like I've got to start incorporating accountability into my leadership style. This is not going to work. Like everything just kind of, my whole world unraveled around me. And I won't go into details about that here just for sake of time. But so I started going and shadowing people who are really good hammer droppers, for lack of a better word, like people that I had seen in action, and they're like the ones who are like, no, you will cease and desist right now. And like, the people that just could like stop that negative behavior like immediately. And I tried briefly to mimic some of that and found that it just was not consistent with my personality and with my values. Like I just could, like, that's not me. Fast forward, I have replaced the hammer metaphor with a heart. So what I believe is now that accountability is a byproduct of how much I care about my employees and about my team and those that I supervise and of being of service to them. And accountability is a way that I get to show that love, is by holding them accountable to outcomes to behavior to whatever. And at the same time, being very transparent and owning my own mistakes and errors along the way, which is a huge transition for me. Like, I mean, we're talking over the course of multiple years here, right? Um, and so I think for me, like that kind of making that shift of the mindset, because and I know, I've said this in a few other places, that I believe that one of the root causes of dysfunction, if not the root cause of dysfunction, is fear. And what has helped me is when I have those situations where I'm dealing with employees and I'm like, okay, we are not connecting. It's like I have a vision, I have like trying to do something, and we are not connecting. The questions that I usually ask myself are, one, am I missing something? Is this person seeing something that I'm not seeing? Are they seeing a risk and they have a fear that I just am not? I've got a blind spot and I'm not seeing that risk. So there may be something very informative in that relationship. Like it might be like, okay, that might help change the direction to be stronger and better if I open my mind to that, rather than driving and pushing and shoving my own agenda, like really being open to that. Then the other thing and I'll kind of wrap up and give you guys a chance. Like I said, I don't know how to succinctly put all of this. I got so much going on right now. The other piece of that is, for me, I feel like I finally am coming to a point in I guess it's because I'm old and I have a lot of gray, and I'm just more experienced, and like all the trauma work that I've done over the years and all the mental health work, I've gotten to a point now where I can like objectively look at a situation and say, okay, here's what I could do better. And everything else is really it is a symptom of where that person currently is. And I try really hard not to label them as like a troublemaker or a negative employee or whatever. It's just, I think of that Brene Brown quote, where she says that at any given moment, everyone is giving you the best possible version of themselves that they have available to them at that moment. I know it's not the exact quote, but it's like basically that concept. And so leading with that empathy and just kind of saying like, okay, this just happens to be the best that you're doing today. It's not going to, I can't accept it because I have a responsibility to the team and to the mission. So therefore there will be natural consequences, but they're not because I don't like you. They're not because whatever, like, and they may not believe me, but this is kind of what I tell myself is, it's because I care. I want you to be successful. I want our team to be successful. So there's certain things that need to, like certain expectations that have to be met. Other than that, like I will hold you in dear regard for the rest of my life. And I'll remember you always with loving care, even though you may hate me. It's like, and that's more of where you're at than where I'm at. So anyway, I'll pause there and give you guys a chance.
No, Amjad, I appreciate that because it brought up two things, I think, in my experience that I struggled with. One was that I was so connected to the product that my team eventually put out that I could not let something go forward that was not to my standards. And so because I buffered everything, I would fight it downstream. Like, nope, this is not what I want. Like, nope, how can you not get this? Like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Why can't you do this? And they would just keep pushing back of who's asking you to do this. And so I would feel very challenged. I would then get defensive of, I'm the boss and I'm asking you. That's what's happening right now. When in reality, I can look back now and go, had I just let things maybe move forward, not at the highest of qualities, and I hate to say, like, gotten the feedback myself of I expect more from you and your team, that would have been an opportunity for me to say, no, leadership is asking this of me. And now I'm asking this of you. I never gave that chance because it was always just a second, like it was a validation. They'd say, oh, this is really good. It wasn't them actually pointing out at those higher levels the changes that they wanted to see be done. So then no one was fully motivated to necessarily have that kind of change come through. And I think the other thing I ran into was and I think we see this when we move from position to position, right? So I was a newer leader in the federal agency, and I looked at job descriptions and I looked at the steps, like where people were in the rankings and hierarchy. And I'm like, okay, you make XYZ amount of money. What do you mean I have to rewrite half your stuff for you? Like, that's not how this works. But because historically they had gotten really good appraisals, they had had people that were conflict adverse, like it was a shock to their system to have a leader impose different expectations. And I didn't know how to do that transition. Like, I didn't know how to say at the start, I'm coming in, here's what I expect. If it's not historically what you had, you're going to have to pivot. And Gauri, I know you had this too. So I'm like kind of looking towards you. And we both, I think, have said that there were some people that were never going to get that. There's others that maybe would have had that decision happen differently. But I think that's when I'm listening to you, it's some of those pieces, and they wouldn't have been fix-alls, but they definitely were things in my control to have done slightly differently had I kind of had the foresight to do so.
You guys, I'm having this moment of realizing I do really well. So you guys are bringing up two kind of themes. One is accountability, and one is motivational interviewing or understanding someone's motivation. And I'm realizing, wow, I excel at both of those things with my patients, because when I'm taking care of a patient, and it goes to what you're talking about, Amjed, with the hammer being now, instead of thinking of accountability as a hammer, you think of it as a heart. When I take care of my patients, I'm not a supervisor. I'm someone who loves this human being that's in front of me, and I love all the people that love them. And my responsibility in that room and in all of our interactions is to make sure that I'm helping them get to their healthcare goals, and everything's about their goals, not my goals for them. But when I started as a doctor, it was about my goals, and I had to change it to what their goals were. And obviously it's different because when you're a supervisor, you're moving towards goals of an organization and goals of your department and things like that. But I realize I'm really good at accountability and motivational interviewing with patients. And I'm realizing there's a switch that's different when you're supervising people. But if I apply what I have to do with patients in a room to my employees, maybe I would be a lot better at it. Accountability. I've reflected a lot on accountability, and I've learned high performers like the word accountability because they hold themselves accountable and they have high expectations of others. And low performers, or people who have the potential of being high performers but don't always understand expectations. So when there's a communication gap or an understanding gap, those people don't like accountability. They hear the hammer, they think of a hammer, versus high performers like the accountability because it makes them even more high performing and they feel like things move forward. And so I think that's really interesting if we can get everybody to view it like a heart. And this is a lot like we're doing this for a greater good than just ourselves or just our supervisors, which ties into what you're saying, Natalie, about if you would have communicated the why, then people would have understood what this task was for. And it wasn't just for your expectations, it was for something bigger. Anyway, all this is tying really well together for me. And I'm like, wow, I'm really good at this with patients and maybe not as good with employees with it.
Yeah. Wow. That's going to be a hard chair to follow, because I got really emotional when you said, I love this human being in front of me and all the people that love them. Like, I got really, like, I thought I was going to break down there for a second. Like, I was holding it in. I don't know. There's something about that just filled my heart, like with a lot of love. And I thought, man, I aspire to that with every human being who's in front of me. Like, every single human being in front of me, that I aspire to that. I don't always do it, but that's like my aspiration, is to treat every single person who's in front of me. Now, it's interesting is you drew the kind of correlation between, or juxtaposition of, your patient care, kind of your patient provider relationship versus supervisor employee relationship. My similar experience with that was me with my kids as a parent, and then my relationship with my employees. And it's weird because there was a whole parallel. So, for example, I was having a lot of difficulty with my eldest when he was in his early teens, or late tweens, early teens, because he's got, just this really strong, I always say, like, he was born to be a CEO one day or something, because he's got that just very strong D, if you're familiar with DISC, like D personality. Took after his grandfather a lot. So it reminds me of my dad, so it's a lot of that kind of energy there. And, I was having such a difficult time with him. And I had this one employee that would just bring me to tears every night, like we were talking about earlier. And when I went through HCLDP, I shared a lot of that trauma. So this was the year that I mentioned, 2014. That was also the year I did HCLDP, or the Healthcare Leadership Development Program. And in that I shared with my peers like this whole story, and they said, boy, you really need to look into boundaries, because it sounds like you have no boundaries with this employee. And so that started me on a whole journey around how to set clear, like for myself, like emotional, mental boundaries between me and my employees and me and my kids, to like kind of build some of that, like a more healthy separation rather than being so codependent and enmeshed, which is exactly what I was doing at work and at home. And there, around the same time, I kind of got into, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Parenting with Love and Logic. It's a parenting strategy that like. That's our go-to baby shower gift, is we give everybody this book, like Parenting with Love and Logic. It's amazing how much of an influence that had on my leadership style. So the idea is about setting in, just in a nutshell, it's about setting clear boundaries and allowing for mistakes to be made, allow the experiences to be the teachers, and being a source of unconditional love and support. And so I started that with my children, and today, like, my relationship with them is 180 degrees from where they were younger. And I think it greatly informed my leadership style. So I started treating my employees with that same concept of, there's certain things that I'm okay with and there's certain things that I'm not. These are the boundaries. Within that, you are free to roam. Like, it's like I give you full autonomy to do whatever you want to do, even if I don't like the way you're going to do it. And I wouldn't never do it that way, or I don't agree with whatever. And, it's Natalie, to your point, like, one of the things I had to start challenging myself is, would it be that because it wasn't done the way that I wanted it to, with those quality standards, that truly was lower quality or just different quality? And would anybody above me even care? Like, it's like, they look at it and go, wow, this is great. Like, we're super happy with it and be fine. And so I had to start letting some of that go. And anyway, so that, those are, I guess, a couple additional reflections for me that really came up is, how to, this is going to sound really crazy when we talk about hot mess to high potential, and it's like, well, it's kind of funny. You talked about sticky situations on a podcast that's called Get a Grip. So I was like, wait, so is sticky good or bad? Like, I'm really confused. Like, should I be grabbing on, or should I be letting go? Like, it's like, no, I don't know what to do. It's like, and of course I have maple syrup all over myself because I was making pancakes or French toast with the nieces. But the idea, for me, is, how can I get to be more emotionally, mentally, spiritually stable myself? And the more that happens, I feel like everything else sort of works out. Like, the more stable and set that I am, even when I'm dealing with really difficult, like, I don't want to use the word difficult, really unhealthy. I like the word unhealthy. That's the word I use, healthy and unhealthy. I say someone who's exhibiting some really unhealthy behaviors that are, causing disruption, being unproductive, maybe causing rework and other types of harm and damage. But if I'm stable, I feel like I can show up and be contributory in a positive way rather than contributing to the chaos. Because that's what I used to do. I used to bring more my own chaos to the chaos, and it would just get worse, instead of being that stable presence that I can just, I don't know, I'm kind of the Yoda, right? Like, just sort of look at him and go, yeah, do or don't do. There is no try, like, like, just, okay. And, kind of just smile and nod and say, yeah, but I'm still expecting X. I'm still holding you to that. Love you as a person, want to support you, but I still have this expectation. And there doesn't have to be all that negative emotion wrapped up in there. So,
well, and I think, Gauri, if I can just drop two quick things in, when you mentioned, the the boundaries piece, one of the boundaries I struggled with was caring about every level underneath me. And Gari and I just talked about like, oh, we would take even 10 minutes to talk with folks that were 2 to 3 levels of supervision, kind of down the pathway. And I was so concerned with if they were happy, that if I knew they weren't happy because their supervisor was not doing what I expected, I would then manhandle the supervisor to try to make them happy. But now I couldn't hold that supervisor accountable because I had intervened to a point where now I couldn't really judge them on their own performance. Like, you didn't let them fall. You strapped them up with so many safety nets to make sure they never fell on anyone, that you never kind of let that adventure happen. And I'll go back to my own HCLDP because we've all been through the course. And I remember telling my mentor, they're not acting appropriately. And he goes, who the heck are you to say what's appropriate? And I went, ooh, like it was that reflection moment of, well, it's professional behavior. And he was like, but have you defined that? Have you said it's not appropriate for you to hold me 25 minutes after the end of the meeting because you feel like you haven't been able to say everything that you wanted to say? Like, just saying I have to go, or saying, if you don't respect these boundaries, it will actually show up on your performance review. Like, we have to be timely with things. Like, this is not how we function in this team. And I've always remembered that every time I go to that's inappropriate behavior, or that's not appropriate. Or then I'm like, oh crap, now I got to define it again. So I think those are good ways to think about our language. And then Gari, I'm going to put you on the hot seat, because when we touched about this, I had said one of the things that always set me off was someone going, you're not listening to me. And my immediate reaction is, yes, I am. Versus, and I have this with my husband, so Amjed, it made me think of you with your kids, and I'll say it to him. I'm like, you're not listening to me. And he goes, what am I not listening to? And that being the different response, and then I actually have to come up and try to put it differently and explain, becomes a challenge back to me, but also realizes I probably could have communicated that a little bit differently. It's not all on them that their receivers are broken, because they obviously received, they heard me talking. They just didn't understand it in the same way. And Gari, I know when I said that and you were like, ooh, I feel real triggered right now.
I think so I've been reflecting a lot on that. Even that question of what are you hearing me say makes a big difference. If I feel like I'm not being heard and that person doesn't understand what I'm saying, what's the one question that I can ask? Because I'm only in control of what I can say and do and act. What's one thing I can ask? Okay, what are you hearing me say? And when they answer, defensive Gauri is going to come out if I'm not careful. So I need to listen on what they're telling me that they heard, rather than be like, that's not what I said, and go into defensive mode. So that's why that one was triggering, because it's something that I've been on both sides of that, feeling not heard, and then also being the one of, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong still, or I don't understand why you're so upset at me still. Help me understand. And when both people are getting frustrated, it's really hard to get anywhere. One thing that's standing out to me of what you said, Amjed, is if you brought in your own chaos, it would add things. I think all of us have been there. And something I'm thinking about now in my self-employed entrepreneurial land that I'm in is, how do I create and curate a lifestyle where my cup is always overflowing, and the energy that I give to people is from the overflow, not from the cup itself. Because I think that even changes everything, right? Like, when I come back after a week of vacation on the beach, where all I've done is read and swim and do fun things, I come back and the littlest of things, are easy to brush off. Even big things are easy to brush off. And then you get to 4 months later, where I'm 4 months from that vacation, and now the littlest things impact me. And I think it's because the cup just keeps slowly getting empty. And so now I'm like, what are the things that we can do as leaders where our cup is always overflowing, so that when we are helping others, we're not taking from our cup that we need to help to take care of our lives outside of work. That way we're giving the overflow to the people who really need it. And I think you can lead with a lot more love that way, if we are overflowing with love ourselves.
Yeah, so I love that. That actually ties into two things that I focus in on a lot, and related to the cup. So one, and this kind of started I don't know, honestly, it might have been around COVID time or maybe like in the last couple of years, just a daily gratitude practice, which, I know Natalie and I have talked about it, but just taking time every evening to refill the cup. And, a friend of mine challenged me to like think about, and like I said, we shared about this in another podcast recording, but to reflect on experiences from the day more so than physical things. Like, oh, I'm grateful for my car that works, and I'm grateful for a roof over my head. Those are great. Those are wonderful. But reflecting on, when I said something really dumb and my wife just could not stop laughing, and like just like tears were coming out of her eyes. She was laughing so hard. Like that to me is like the joy of the day, right? Like that's the thing that kind of refilled my cup that day or whatever. One of the things. And then the other thing is you were talking about how to fill other people's cup with the overflow. Now, this is going to sound really, really wild, but what I've found is if I spend more time in my day focused on trying to fill other people's cups, at the end of the day, I find my own cup full. It's a weird mathematical equation that I don't quite understand, but it's like, the more time like that I'm going around saying like, Gauri, how can I support you? Like, what can I do for you? And, Natalie, what can I do for you? And then I look back at the end of the day and I'm like, wow, my cup is like super full today. Like what just happened? There's something about service that I find really healing for me. And it's like, I think actually, I think I know I said I don't understand the math, but I think I do kind of understand the math, which is my biggest source of chaos is when I become what I call self-focused. And I just like all my energy is kind of drawn inward. And what happens is I become like, almost like I'm thinking of like a hedgehog or something, it's like where it's like, or a porcupine or like a turtle, where it's like I go into the shell and I go into protection mode and I become full of fear. And then, it's like the more time I spend doing that, the less I'm available to be of service to others or to be positive or I end up draining my own cup that way. And so like at the end of the day, if I can kind of flip that. And so that's like my focus throughout the day is like, please help me keep my focus pointed outward rather than inward. And so I just find that really, really helpful. And then one last point, and it was something I think, Natalie, you were talking about like, like the layers below and things like that. And I don't know, somehow in that it reminded me, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm finding I find it to be healthy for me, which is like letting people show up in a way that's authentic to them, even if it doesn't fit societal norms and organizational norms. Like, so for example, I've worked with one employee who just, it's like processes things a little bit differently, takes a little bit extra time, has to sometimes like go down this really like energetic, oh my God, the world is going to crash and burn, and then finally comes out the other end and is fine, And instead of saying like, that's unacceptable, that's inappropriate, I don't have time to mess with that. Just making some time and creating some space for that person to be able to do that. And the conversations I've had with some of my employees over the years is I know this is going to sound really weird, but it's under that accountability thing, right? Where I'm like, I noticed lately that you seem to be like more reactive than usual, or you seem to be like more frustrated than usual. Is there something going on? Is there some way that I can support you? Is there some stressor that's going on for you that maybe I'm not aware of? And then we start talking through that and realize, and inevitably what I have found, like every time I've done that is that the employee will go, oh my gosh, you're so right. I feel so overwhelmed right now. I've got 10 things and I can't keep it straight. And I just feel completely overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, well, let's see how we can help you reprioritize, and maybe we can get something off your plate. Maybe I can step in and help with something. And then, but had I not been in that position of service, I might not have ever seen that. I would have just seen the symptom, which was you're driving me nuts right now and you're not functioning at full capacity and you're being rude and frustrating to your coworkers and to me. And it's like, okay, those are all symptoms of something else. So it's like, Gauri, going back to your patient provider analogy, right? It's like, I think of employees, I watch the team, whether they report to me or not, and coworkers, supervisors, and watch for symptoms. Like, what are the symptoms? What are these symptoms telling me? And I try to make a differential diagnosis. And then I start, it's like, I go to the whole thing. It's like, sometimes I have to do a history and physical. It's like, well, I'll skip the physical, but I'll do a history, and it's like, okay, help me to understand where you're coming from and just like treat it like that. And it's, I think that's such a great analogy. Like, I still am misty-eyed from your comment earlier. Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, and Amjed, I'm sorry, I'm going to let you wrap up because somehow we're at 35 minutes. But I just want to say one of the key takeaways to me, Amjed, is that we should find out what causes chaos for those that we work with. Because to your point, they're very different things, right? Chaos can just be like, as long as my at-home life is fine, I'm fine here. Or if I don't hear anything for a week, it's not no news is good news. It's the world is ending. Like, so knowing what some of those triggers are may actually help us adjust for them. Not just what makes you feel good about life, what makes you feel a little bit stressed could be a way to flip those questions and the idea of flipping the frame here. But we have had an amazing conversation. This may turn into a recurring get a grip with the triple Bs, Baghdadi, Behari, and Bulger when it's all said and done. But Gauri, wrap us up for this quick session because we will be back for more 100%. What are you left with as we close out today's episode?
I think it comes down to a few things. One is understanding someone else's motivations, but also their fears. What are they afraid of? What are the things that they need to be successful? And then what are the roadblocks that they might have? Whether that's because today this is the most that they can give, or there's something going on at home, or maybe they don't understand what your expectations are. Some version of that. And I think the second one is to lead with love and compassion, the way Amjed was saying, because I think if I view my employees, even the ones that have unhealthy behaviors, if I treat them the way I treat my patients who are sometimes very resistant to my recommendations and things like that, what I would do is just be like, what are you afraid of? What are your goals? What are your outcomes? When we do it with employees, we can ask them what they are. And then as Amjed said, hey, those don't align with my goals and outcomes, but that's a decision you can make, and there will be consequences if you don't do that. But here's the pathway towards success, so we don't have to go down that path. And then letting that be a choice for someone else and giving them the autonomy to decide if they want to be aligned or not aligned, I think is what I'm picking up from everything today.
Well, awesome. And Amjed, we can't thank you enough for coming on and doing this kind of live breakdown brainstorming that we've done today on it. We're going to have you back. Don't worry. And
I'm still pinching myself. I'm like, wait, is this real? Like, am I really on Get a Grip? Like, I can't believe it.
The triple Bs.
The triple B.
And if you're listening to this and you're like, I got something I want them to break down for me in a situation I've been through, send it over. If it's something Gauri and I can tackle, we will. If it's something all three of us are better suited to tackle, we'll probably take that route too. So drop it in the show notes, shoot us a message, anything that you might like from that instance. And thanks so much for being here for another episode of Get a Grip with Dr. Gauri Behari and Amjed this time around, where we flip the frame and we find our footing. Thanks for listening.